representing the three teenagers, Long's barrister had said in respect to the Attorney General's comments that there had been widespread public concern. Long's barristers said that that should have no influence on the issue of whether this sentence ought to be adjusted one way or another. Well, the handing down of this judgment today, the Attorney General's reference her application to refer the sentences under the unduly lenient scheme has been rejected by the three Court of Appeal judges. Also, at that hearing, the lawyers representing the three had also sought permission to appeal against sentences for manslaughter. Their manslaughter sentences will remain the same. So there's been no change at all, Joanna, in terms of the sentences of Albert Bowers, Jessie Cole and Henry Long.
Has there been any reaction from PC Harper's widow?
Yes, she has released a statement, and as you know, she's been campaigning for what she calls Harper's Law, where she wants a life sentence for anyone who is convicted of killing a emergency worker. She has said in a statement that she is disappointed with the outcome of today's judgment, and she ultimately feels, along with the Attorney General and the majority of the country, she says that these sentences are far too lenient. She goes on in the statement to say that she remains more determined than ever to do what is right and to ensure we see what should have been in place so long ago. So in her statement, she says she is going to
Looks a lot
continue to
better with
fight
black
for what
level
she
set to
says
high.
is justice for emergency workers. We've
Too
also
dark
had a
and
brief
low.
statement from the Attorney General after the judgment today. She has said that she respects the decision of the Court of Appeal and her thoughts remain with PC Harper's family for their unimaginable loss.
Thank you, Helena. Strict Tier 3 coronavirus restrictions have come into force for nearly 11 million people across the whole of London and parts of neighbouring Essex and Hertfordshire after a surge in positive cases. 34 million people are now living in the highest level of restrictions. There can be no socialising indoors with anyone other than the people you live with or those in your support bubble. Bars, pubs and restaurants will have to close, although they can provide takeaways and deliveries. But shops, gyms and hairdressers will be able to stay open. This report by John McManus.
It looked festive, and the crowds and the traffic were out in force last night in the capital. But as the Tier 3 deadline loomed, the mood among some of the diners and the drinkers of London's West End turned to one of resignation.
Unfortunate measure the government have to take, but we're going to hopefully make the most of it tonight. Even if you don't like the government, you just hope that they have good scientists that are telling them the right thing to do.
I've lost people in my life, but the reality is people do die, and there's a lot more people dying of other things than this disease, or whatever they're calling it. It's a joke, it's a scandal.
What is the point in living if we're not allowed to be social beings, if we're not allowed to interact with each other, if we're not allowed to be engaged with each other?
Keeping that one
There is
though.
no point in life if we're not with other people.
The government, though, has made its decision, and as the night wore on, London's time in Tier 2 finally ran out.
That one looks a bit brighter.
So it's last orders here on the streets of the capital, and at a time of year when bars, restaurants and pubs should be making most of their money. And for those who enjoy a Christmas tipple, there's no idea yet when they might be able to come back. Parts of Essex and Hertfordshire have also moved to the tightest restrictions, which many people in swathes of the Midlands, the North East and the North West are already living under. Today, the government will review whether other parts of England need to move between tiers. And although venues such as these can offer takeaway food and drink, for many, the only option will be to pack up for now. John McManus, BBC News.
Speaking this morning, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, said he wanted restrictions in the area to be eased.
I hope the government will make an evidence-based decision. I can understand that the mood has changed nationally with the position in London and the Christmas period coming. So if the government wanted to err on the side of caution, a couple of our boroughs are still above the national average, and I think we wouldn't object to a different decision being taken there. But there is a strong case now for a substantial part of Greater Manchester to be in Tier 2. And bear in mind, people here have been under restrictions for 4.5 months, and that has to be taken into consideration when these decisions are made.
Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Well, the lockdowns and restrictions are, of course, having a continuing impact
Still
on
prefer
the
that
economy.
picture though.
In particular, the hospitality sector, which has been forced to close in Tier 3 areas. Let's go now to our business presenter, Seema Kotecha. Seema, what is the analysis of the impact so far on the hospitality sector in particular?
Morning, Joanna. Yes, 14,000 businesses in the capital have closed today as these new restrictions have come into place. Bars, restaurants, pubs, cafes can only do takeaways, and that means consumers are not allowed to go in. And it comes at a really bad time for these businesses because they were hoping to make up for the lost ground that they